Hello, Algebra 2A. Welcome back. We are looking at day 2 of lesson 25, where we're going to talk about a box and whisker plot and how to construct one. A box and whiskers plot will be a graph that'll show us the data set dispersion, and it's broken down into 4 quarters or quartiles. The first quartile is the median of the lower half of the data, and then the third quartile is the median of the upper half of the data. To construct your box and whisker plot, you're going to need 5 data values, which we will get from our calculator. We have a minimum, quartile 1, median, quartile 3, and max. And then to graph it, we're going to put it on a number line. And it's always constructed above the number line so that we can keep stacking box and whisker plots, and then you can compare their data. So the next thing we'll do is we'll take our data and we're going to put that into our calculator like we did in day 1. So next I'll take my calculator and open up my stat, edit, and if you have lists in here, so like maybe you have some numbers in here, you can go up to L1 and hit the clear button right here. And then if you scroll down, those numbers will clear. So the next thing you'll see is my list populated with all these numbers from example 3, 4. So there's our list with the 9 numbers that we were given for our data set. Now we're going to go back to what we did in day 1. Second quit, we'll hit stat. We'll go over to calculate, one variable stats, and make sure this says L1. If it does say L2, you can just go and highlight that and then hit second L1, change it back to L1. Then we go to calculate, and there's our mean standard deviation like we talked about yesterday. But if you go down, here's our 5 values that we need for the box and whisker plot. So we'll record those values and then we'll start to construct our number line and our box and whisker plot. When we start to make our box and whisker plot, we're going to set up our intervals to include all the way from our minimum to our maximum. So it looks like we go from 30 to 46. So I'm going to set up intervals of 30, 40, and then up to 50. So I'm just counting by tens, and that's going to include the 46. The next thing we'll do is we'll make a dot above the number line where each of these numbers lies. So 30 would be right about here. 32.5, I'm going to have to kind of estimate, would be right there. 34 would be about right there. 43 would be roughly right there. I'm going to move it a little bit closer to the 45 area. And then lastly, 46 would be about halfway, a little bit closer to 50, right about there. Once we have our 5 values, we're going to construct a box that goes around our quartile 1 and quartile 3. So there's the box. Our median, then we're going to draw a line to represent where that is, and then whiskers to your min and your max, and there would be our box and whisker plot. Now those quartiles split your data into quarters. So each of these sections, so this section right here, this is 25% of our data. This section here is 25%. This section here, and then this section here. So we can see that most of our data is in this smaller area because it's really close together. So most of our numbers are here. And then as we get to the higher end of our data, we have a pretty big spread. And that just shows that the upper half of our data is a little bit more spread out than the lower half. But then eventually we'll start to compare multiple box and whisker plots, and we can start to make conclusions about the data. But just like yesterday, we'll enter our data into our stat, and then we can go and calculate. And then if you scroll down, you'll get all 5 values you need to construct your box and whisker. We'll finish up with example 5. The highest averages of the students in Mr. Rogers' Algebra 2 class is shown in the table below. What is the mean of the scores and the standard deviation? So to complete this problem again, we're going to use our calculator. So we'll go back in and put these numbers into our list and do our one variable stats. So I'll head into stat edit. We'll clear out that list we just did. And now we'll put in our new list. Once my list is in, I'll hit second quit, stat, go over to calculate, one variable stats, and there we'll get our information. So remember from yesterday, our X bar represents our mean, so the average is 93. And sigma represents my standard deviation, which is about 3.08. And rounding to the nearest hundredth is what we'll do most often. So there we have our standard deviation. So most scores are about 3 away. So the range goes somewhere from like 90 to 96 on average with those 4 scores. So with only 4 scores, we don't get a lot of, really definite stats. If we had a larger number, like maybe a full class of like 22, we could get a little bit more accurate stats. But there would be our mean and our standard deviation. So that concludes our day 2 of lesson 25. You're ready to move on, and we'll see you next time.